Hammers are an item in video games that we kind of take for granted. For all the guns and swords we use in our games, we tend to not really appreciate a hammer's versatility as a tool and a weapon. You can use it to build things and activate switches, or you can use it to pound the hell out of everything and everyone you see. We're going to rank these based on their effectiveness, how iconic they are, how they fit the character, but most importantly, how much fun they are to use. There were some great hammers that were cut, but we had to hammer out the 10 best in gaming.
Number 10. The Ice Climbers Mallets.
These two sibling badasses from Ice Climbers don't have the flashiest hammers, but don't underestimate their effectiveness. These guys will beat your ass down and with no remorse. Nana and Popo use their hammers perfectly in sync with each other, making these two untouchable and inescapable. Regardless if you're being smashed down into the ground or smacked up into the night sky, you shouldn't mess with these two adorable smashing machines.
Number 9. Fable 3's Hero's Hammer.
The Hero's Hammer is not the strongest hammer in Fable 3, and it's definitely not as dominant as Jack's hammer. However, it does have a unique feature that puts it above any other hammer in Fable. First, this hammer is passed down to you by your ancestor, the protagonist from Fable 2. Second, the Hero's Hammer will morph based on your decisions and behaviors in the game. Everything from how much you love your family to how many undead you have killed will change its appearance and its abilities. The Hero's Hammer is the only hammer that makes it impossible to hide the kind of player that you are.
Number 8. Breath of the Wild's Spring Hammer.
There are so many cool weapons in the Zelda series, from swords to boomerangs, and of course, hammers. In Breath of the Wild, you have the iron sledgehammer to mine and sometimes fight with, but with the spring hammer, you can knock your enemies Smash Bros style and watch them fly across the map. It's not the strongest hammer by any means, but it's one of the most fun to use. Sending some poor goblin flying into a mountain or a bunch of other goblins just never gets old. The spring hammer is hilarious and shockingly pretty effective in combat, but if you want to send your opponents flying, it's way better to use the next hammer on this list.
Number 7. Red Faction's Sledgehammer.
Sticking to hammers that send people flying into space, the Red Faction games have always been fun for their destructible environments and freedom to destroy anything at any time. The best weapon for a game like this has to be the sledgehammer from Red Faction Guerrilla. This hammer can take people's heads off and even destroy small buildings and cars. If you're a god in multiplayer, you can even turn your sledgehammer into an ostrich, because guess. As fun as it is to use though, like the spring hammer, it's not the best combat weapon. However...
Number 6. Halo's Gravity Hammer.
The Halo Gravity Hammer is so ridiculously powerful, it can flip entire tanks over and smack rockets out of the sky like they're baseballs. This hammer uses a shock field generating gravity drive to emit a kinetic pulse around 4.5 meters outward, which in English means you're gonna feel like shit the entire time you're soaring through the air. There's a reason the wielder of the Gravity Hammer in Halo multiplayer can literally change the course of an entire match. The Gravity Hammer shows that it's way better to bring a hammer to a gunfight.
Number 5. League of Legends Mercury Hammer.
Jace from League of Legends is an honorable inventor who uses his abilities, weapons, and strength to protect his beloved hometown. The townsfolk are in good hands too, because his Mercury Hammer is one of the most deadly weapons in the game. Not only is it a strong as hell hammer by itself, but if powered correctly can fire a demolition beam at whoever is in the way. If you're playing League and you have a solid Jace on your team, you know that they're going to drop the hammer hard on any fool pushing just a little too far in their lane.
Number 4. King Dedede's Hammer.
King Dedede has a hammer that fits his fighting style perfectly. He might be slow, but it only takes one hit and you're out for good. This hammer can be used to spike people into the ground with a force that's nearly unblockable, but when he needs some extra oomph in his swing, he activates the rocket thruster built into the hammer to swing so hard it's more than certain to be a knockout blow. King Dedede is one of the longest running characters on this list, and his hammer is as iconic as it gets. It's just too bad though that the next guy on this list stole his rocket idea.
Number 3. Overwatch's Rocket Hammer.
Reinhardt from Overwatch has a hammer very similar to Dedede's, but Reinhardt can use his hammer for a move called Earth Shatter and knock opponents to the ground as he charges in and sweeps up the poor heroes who stood in his way. This hammer has such a wide arc, it's almost unfair to go up against him one-on-one because each swing takes almost a 180-degree angle. On top of that, he can whip it forward and send his fire strike toward his enemies and take people out from afar. This hammer doesn't even need to touch you to deal damage. Best of all, it's a great tool to use to split apart an enemy team that's too clumped up. You put up a barrier, you push your team forward, and you let all hell break loose and smash everyone into the ground.
Number 2. Mario's Wrecking Hammer.
As the oldest hammers on this list, the hammers that Mario uses in the original Donkey Kong and Wrecking Crew must be laced with drugs, because they make you go crazy and uncontrollably smack everything and anything that gets in your way. There's a barrel coming at you, hit it so hard it explodes into thin air. Have a bunch of walls you need to knock down, level an entire skyscraper in seconds. Annoying players in Smash Bros. Trying to kill you, become a giant ball of death and hunt their asses down as they run away in fear. There's only one other hammer in gaming that's more devastating than this one.
Number 1. Gears of War's Hammer of Dawn.
Okay, timeout. Before you say anything about how this is not an actual hammer, you're absolutely correct. This is not a literal hammer by definition, like a lot of the other hammers on this list, and I debated for a long time if this figurative hammer was even allowed to be here. However, the more I thought about it, this list is an opinionated view based on fictional video game hammers, and if there was anything in gaming that coins the phrase, drop the hammer, nothing drops the hammer quite like the Hammer of Dawn from Gears of War. This weapon is so powerful, it can destroy entire armies and cities in a matter of minutes. The way it smashes to the ground and destroys anything and anyone in its path is simply marvelous. It may be a controversial choice, but the Hammer of Dawn is the best hammer in video games.